Hello and welcome to The Toughest Choice. I'm Stephanie Reynolds. I am so delighted to introduce you to my guest today, Stephanie Wootan, who is a territory partner for PDS Health. And PDS Health is an organization, a very large organization, over 15,000 team members. They offer a range of services to support clinicians, whether they be in general dentistry, dental specialties, or primary care. And they currently have over 4,600 clinicians and 1,000 practices in 24 states. So it's a pretty hefty organization. And Steph is a territory partner for Colorado, Kansas, Minnesota, Missouri, and New Mexico. We're going to learn a little bit more what that means in a moment. And Steph has been with PDS since 2013. She's very strong in managing operations and leading teams, and she's helped her teams achieve great results with clear vision and dedication to success. And before working at PDS, she held leadership roles in the retail industry and served as a sergeant in the Army. She's got a real interesting and varied background. Welcome, Steph. Steph to Steph.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you. That was a lovely intro. Hit the nail on the head.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. And people are interested in understanding the scope a little bit of your role so that they can understand a little bit more about how you're applying these life lessons, leadership lessons, and learnings, right, to your day-to-day. So can you speak a little bit about your role and what it really means?
Yes, absolutely. It's a rather large role. I remember speaking to Steve, our CEO, about it, and he says to me, and he asks me, "Are you up for this challenge?" And of course, I say, "Absolutely, bring it on." And at the time, I thought that I knew the scope of the territory partner, and boy, oh boy, was I wrong. As I've transitioned into the role, I've been in this role now just over a year. And as I've transitioned into the role, there's 3,500 team members, give or take, under our umbrella, and we're called the North Central Territory. And so it's a lot of team members. And when I bring the mindset of team first, it's a lot. Therefore, I have to really come alongside my leaders within our particular territory to ensure that we are the absolute best we can be for our clinicians. The clinicians are our number one customer. So at the end of the day, the operations manager is the one who is giving that firsthand experience to those clinicians. So it's extremely important to me, again, that we lead with people first so that the clinicians have the opportunity to provide the absolute best patient care for their patients, which is their number one customer. So yeah, we have a ton of team members, lots of offices, and I ensure the financial viability of this particular territory.
Oh, is that all?
That's all. No big deal.
Oh my God. Okay. So I'm thinking 3,500 team members and all those clinicians. Like you said, team first. You said
Team
team
first.
first. Can you say what that means for you and for your team members?
Yes. It's always, for me, it's together we go farther. Together we accomplish more. And if we can create a working environment that is ideal for team, I believe it does make us attractive and magnetic to some of the best clinicians out there. When you think culture, when you think about what we're bringing to the table, it's extremely important that we take care of our team so that they are taking care of, again, the clinicians and those patients. That's really what it's about. I often spend a lot of time with my partners. There's regional partners in each of the states, some multiple partners in some of the states, depending on their sizes. And oftentimes in our one-on-ones, when we're really getting into the meat and potatoes, yes, we're reviewing financials and results, but we're really digging into team. Where are we at with our development of team? How are we creating the ideal work environment where they do want to stay with us long-term? Obviously, retention is huge. And as we improve our retention, we improve our operations, thereby achieving a greater financial result for all.
Well, okay, so I've had the good fortune of having a little bit of a window into your work life. And I can tell you, nobody's going to be on this show if they're not walking their talk. Uh, but I can tell our listeners that I've learned, not just from Steph directly, but from many others inside the organization, that people who work on and in Stephanie's organizations, they do really feel hugely supported, and they feel like they grow tremendously in the role. And that's not lip service. And this is really true. And I think that that's tricky to pull that off. And also your results year over year, right? The reason Steve, as you may have asked you to take on that much more territory or charter, is because of your results, both with the business, with your clinicians, but also everybody seems to kind of want to work on your teams. And you can't take care of 3,500 people yourself. So I want to go one click into your team approach, if that's okay, because I think we can all learn from that.
Yes.
And then I'd love to shift to some of those tough moments for you, because this is toughest choice. So we want to get into who the heart of you is. But can you speak a little bit about how you managed to translate that philosophy that you were chatting about into the day-to-day? Yeah.
Well, I think it's two-pronged stuff. First, I genuinely believe in maximizing and leveraging my God-given talents. And I can go on, and I am grateful. I lead with the heart of gratitude. I literally wake up in the morning, roll out of bed, and get into the gym. And I'm grateful that my body continues to serve me and my mindset continues to serve me in a way that I stay healthy and I lead a very healthy lifestyle in that way. And when I think about that routine, I think about what I'm giving back to everyone around me. It keeps me sharp. It keeps me able to keep up with everyone. So as I think about my God-given talents, that's one point. But the other point also is maximizing on my talents by way of personality, skill set, ability to communicate, influence, and leverage a good, strong relationship ultimately to get a result. So the second part to it all is I do believe genuinely in strong structure and organization. Of course, speaking as a true operator, that structure, I do believe that if you're able to provide a realm of structure around something so large, such as, for example, just speaking to my territory, if we're able to roll out a structure that allows everyone to know what they should and need to be doing to ensure that we're delivering the essential outcomes that we're after, I think it's a show of love. I think that if we just allow a willy-nilly loose operation, you're not taking care of your team. It's not scalable and it's not predictable. And I do believe that if you create an environment of predictability and clarity, and you back that up with walking that talk, everybody just gets on board. So oftentimes when I'm working with my teams, I'm really honing in on what is the structure, what is the consistency, and ultimately we're doing that in clear, transparent, directive manners.
That's great. That takes a lot of work, doesn't it? Creating that structure.
It does. And I actually become energized by doing that. And the why behind it is because I'm naturally a collaborative person. So I love to bring alongside team members who are just as passionate about improving the organization. So as we work together to improve, we're constantly sharing ideas and elevating. Now, to be clear, we are not constantly pivoting in a way that we're always making changes. That's not the case. However, we will come together and do an after action review and ask, where are we at? How is it going? Where are we going? So it's really neat, again, when you're able to collaborate and move forward together.
So just to come in on that, because I love providing concrete examples for our listeners around, okay, an after action review. Now, what constitutes an action? And just give me one example, if you can, just to ground it into a something that we can relate to.
Yes, so it's called an AAR. And actually, I took that from the military, my time in the military. And essentially, we identify very, very simply, did we accomplish what we set out to do? It really is that simple. So for example, let's think about an owner-doctor meeting. There's tons of planning that goes into an owner-doctor meeting. We want to ensure that we are providing the best ROI on their time because, again, they're out of practice. They're not taking care of their patients. So what does that value add to these clinicians? So let's say all this planning goes into it. We have the OD meeting, the owner-doctor meeting, and afterwards, maybe an hour will pass, everybody will come together and we'll sit and literally we will say, did we accomplish what we set out to do? At this point, we already have some feedback from some of the doctors and we're able to kick that around. We're able to identify where we were soft, where we fell flat, and where we excelled. I always try to celebrate. I'm not the best at it, so I always challenge my teams to do it, and they prop me up, if you will. So they do a really good job of celebrating because I constantly talk about it with them and encourage it. So we talk about those wins, but again, ideally, we're working on improving what is that next one going to look like, and we accomplish all of this through our AAR.
Yeah, that's terrific. And so you're not great at celebrating. Is it because you don't want to rest on your laurels?
When I'm always looking for ways to improve, I keep my humility in check and I never over celebrate anything because unfortunately my mindset is very much, even if we accomplish something, we can have the best outcomes in the organization. There's always something we could have done better or tweaked in a way that would have improved it for many other team members. So I try really hard. A little secret, I actually put a calendar reminder for myself in my calendar to remind me to find something that we're winning at to celebrate. So again, area of opportunity for me, I'm really looking into how I can improve that myself. But
you're so gracious to share that. And I have to say, you are in good company. In my experience in working with executives that are very focused on results, but also on individuals and teams, that never good enough kind of mindset is characteristic, and finding ways to celebrate your progress. Maybe not all the way there, but celebrating progress is something that's important so that we get to have some milestones along the way of accomplishment. But thank you for talking about that. Well, thank you. That's helpful from a blocking and tackling and mindset standpoint. That's really helpful. And so for you, and because this is the toughest choice, it's really about pivot points, right? Tough choices we've had to make as leaders that maybe pulled us away from the status quo or the expectations of how to operate, or maybe some kind of story or seduction from a money or power standpoint that we've been facing or have had to face. So tell me a little bit, if you would, about your own leadership journey and what it's been like for you to move into leadership and what you feel helped you get there.
I love it. Thanks for that question. I'm going to actually start from the last question of what helped me to get here. I am the oldest of three. So the oldest daughter in a Hispanic family of three. Therefore, I took on the mama role early on. It's cultural. It's what we do. But in taking on that mama bear role, I really took on the protector aspect of it very seriously. So from a very young age, I was always empowered in such a way to take care of others, whether it was in the familial setup of cousins or my siblings. So always having that through sports and through academics, I always took leadership roles. It was so easy for me to step up. I was often called up, and I just fell very naturally into those roles. Again, not much scares me. I'm quite fearless on many fronts. And the why behind that is because I'm not afraid to fail. Although I say it's hard for me to celebrate, I'm really not afraid to fail. I look at that really genuinely, even at an early age, as an opportunity to learn and grow. So with that, I believe genuinely that my fearless approach to just about every situation naturally thrust me into a leadership role. I wasn't hesitant to make a move or take the risk. So as I did that, Again, all through school, in academics and in athletics, I was some kind of a captain of something. And then shortly after, I joined the military. And in the military, I was what you would call fast tracking. And essentially what that means, again, because I was willing to take risks and speak up and really put myself out there, I was being promoted very, very rapidly. Therefore, having to really hone in on how am I going to get these teams to follow me. In those training scenarios, it had everything to do with, are we going to survive this mission? Type mindset. So although the style of leadership and drive and direction in the military was quite different than the corporate world, it still gave me a sense of how to bring people along. Even in that particular highly directive environment in the military, you still had to pump the brakes and hone in on a very humanistic aspect and show someone, I see you, I hear you.
Yeah.
So after cultivating all of that throughout my life, then I come into PDS Health. Again, nothing scares me, nothing at all. I wanted to learn everything. And part of my journey in PDS.
Sorry to interrupt you. Sorry, I love where you're going. I want to ask, what is in your mind, because I want to go right to PDS after this question. Yes. What is in your mind? What do you tell yourself why you're not scared? And in other words, courage is going on in spite of the fear. What goes through your mind about, I'm not afraid of anything? I'm just so curious what's underneath that.
That is a really good question. I often ask myself, what's the worst that can happen? And when I think about that, it's whether in any way in life, you can flip that as well. And you can say, but what's the best that could happen? So I think having that mindset and also being so comfortable and confident in knowing who I am as a human, knowing that I will thrive in any environment, no matter what, because that is who I am. It's in my DNA. That provides me an opportunity to just be fearless and unapologetic. And that unapologetic piece comes along with the fact that I know that my intent is good and that I make decisions to serve the greater good. And it's not selfish in a way that I'm leaving bodies in my wake. So
thank you. Oh, that's really helpful. Okay. Sorry. Now let's pivot back to, I love getting underneath those.
I appreciate that. So as I cultivated that leadership over the years, I joined PDS Health, and I was thrust into an environment of the unknown. I was humbled beyond any words because I was like, dental insurance? What is this? What is that dentist doing? It was just wild. It was unreal. Mind you, I studied human biology in school, so I'd been around the gory stuff, but seeing it happening in a dental practice was beyond me. So I began quickly to come alongside the dentist because I was more curious of the dentist experience with us to really understand why did they choose to partner with PDS Health versus the umpteen other options that they have within the space. And I learned quickly that you had to learn what drove them. They're with them, as we call it, right? What's in it for them? Or in this case, what's in it for me? So as I thought about that and I learned a little bit more, I realized that these guys and gals just want to be successful. Most of them couldn't even define what success was because they'd only seen their academic success up to this point. And many of them had no idea, Steph, on how to have a conversation with a human, even if it was communicating what treatment this patient needed. They were taken aback. They were uncomfortable. They didn't know how to connect. They didn't know how to communicate. And let alone telling a dental assistant, hey, this is what I need. This is how you can help me. This is how together we can help the patient. So I used my ability to communicate with the doctors and help them to connect with the patients. So when I helped them to connect with the patients, what you found was their success rate of case acceptance improving just over and over. And they began to see it. So then you build trust because they're like, oh, this gal knows what she's talking about. But Steph, it really was just on the most basic levels of human interaction. So then further to that, we take it up another notch and we begin to teach, the teams begin to teach these dentists how to be a true leader in the practices. And again, if you're leading with people first, they know truly that you are trying to do the best by everyone and the results are going to follow. I can sit here today and tell you that that's the biggest testament to it all. The results will follow if you take care of team first. And it may sound cliche, but
no, it doesn't. Well, you're giving the same example. It's not the same example, different examples for the same philosophy. Even in the military and in your team currently, and now you're talking about the step when you joined and started to really understand the clinicians and the dentists. And it's really about, I'm going to paraphrase, you tell me if this seems right, understanding the world from their point of view and understanding how they think about and actually what they say behaviorally, what they say or do, so that you can get a baseline and see where their motivations are, where their gaps are.
Yes.
And how to then uniquely bring them along, not cookie cutter, because your system is dependent. The dependency in the system is really leaning in and understanding what and how the other needs to be understood, spoken to, and brought along. Is that fair?
Yes, it's completely fair. And a caveat to this step, everything you said ties into ensuring a safe environment.
Yeah, say more about that.
So when I'm going to have a conversation with most team members, a clinician or an operator, I really have to frame the conversation. I tell them what I'm going to tell them. I tell them, and then I tell them what I just told them.
Yeah.
And what that does is it provides just strong clarity.
Yeah.
But ultimately, if I have to have a difficult conversation with someone, I will frame the conversation early on and say, this is going to be a difficult conversation. This is going to be hard. However, you're safe. We're good. Ideally, the outcome from this conversation is going to figure out what we're doing next. So let's talk about it. And I think the quicker you can create that safe space, whether in a difficult conversation or in an environment to allow someone to be vulnerable and to truly share where they're at, to your point, you create far more buy-in and alignment quicker because you're building that trust.
So well said and articulated. I think what I'm also hearing is you're not interested in wielding power with surprise. A lot of leaders put off difficult conversations. I'm hearing you say, get to it sooner, as soon as possible, frame it, make it safe. And then there's no big surprise, and people can respond from what you mentioned, really, from be able to open up and co-create solution.
Yes.
Not buy into solution rather than defend.
Absolutely. No, you hit the nail on the head.
Well, and that also takes a certain level of discipline and commitment to not shortcutting and just do it because I told you to do it, or you're screwed up on that one, or undercutting people's self-esteem in the hope that it'll motivate them to do better next time. That sounds like the antithesis of your approach.
Yes, and I've actually experienced that on many fronts, the breaking down. And although that works in some environments, that absolutely does not work in our particular environment. And I really try to lead through empowerment and elevation of team members. And it is so neat stuff to watch someone really come into themselves and their power and their leadership because they know that you have their back. And there is something so powerful to that they know that they are safe. So I often will tell the team, especially when I start working with someone early on and I'm working to create that safe environment. I said, hey, listen, I need you to fail. So you're probably going to fall. You're going to skin your knee. You're going to bleed. I'm going to come alongside you. I'm probably going to laugh at you, but you bet your tail, I'm going to pick you up and we're going to keep moving and we're going to wipe and dust off and we're going to carry on. And they usually laugh. And the idea, again, is to connect with them on that really just real, vulnerable, humanistic approach so that they know, hey, we're doing this together. She's not going to leave me in the dust because I made a small mistake. No, as a matter of fact, I want to hear about your mistake. I want to know what you did. I want to know that you're curious enough to try things out.
That's so powerful because there's nothing hidden then, and they can be forthcoming and not try to protect themselves. And therefore, and I think there's an expectation in a lot of environments that someone should have known better. If they hire somebody to be a certain level, then they don't need developing. And I've often heard leaders say, I just want to hire more senior people. And the higher up the food chain, oftentimes, not always, and I don't think this is true at PDS, the higher up you go in the food chain, the less development people need. And that's really, I think, the opposite. The more responsibility you have, the more talent you have, and the skill sets change as the oxygen gets a little thinner, right, up at altitude. Then you need more help. So this is really helping me understand how your philosophy translates. So I'm going to ask you, if you will, to talk about moments when you feel like you've had a leadership success. Can you share a leadership success with us? And then in the spirit of not hiding anything, I want to ask you about a failure.
Yes,
just so that we can all learn from your approach.
Yes, probably my proudest successes have to do with my team development. For example, that I've worked with several of my team members to help elevate positions and to watch them grow into this position. I get to stand back and I am so proud watching them thrive and watching them succeed and watching them bring others along and really watching that result, double-digit growth, top and bottom line, year over year. It's really, really fun to step back and say, I helped to identify this talent. I helped to develop this talent and I helped to promote this talent and watch them now. And now they're set up in a way that, that it's endless. Their possibilities are endless. So those are always my most favorite successes, is watching my team thrive.
Well, and at your level and level of any executive, if you don't have the leaders that are thriving and growing into their own strength, all those clinicians could say, well, we just want to work with staff. We just want to work with that one person. If you can't translate it and multiply it, organizations cannot grow. They won't grow. So what about something that didn't go so well? Can you share a story with us?
Yes. I mentioned early that I tend to be a protector of that mama bear mindset. And there has now been on two very distinct occasions where I did not separate from someone fast enough. My gut told me that I needed to. But again, with this mindset of, I can do this, I got this, fearless risk taker, the downfall to that was that I didn't move quick enough. And unfortunately, the ripples of not moving quick enough really impacted certain markets in a way that I've had to come in and overhaul personally the market and help to create a better culture, a greater, more positive, optimistic, and safe environment for these team members. And unfortunately, as a result of not moving quick enough, the impact that was made by that poor leader impacted many lives. And what I mean by that is the turnover was extremely high. The results weren't there. So we had clinicians that were impacted financially. And again, as you think about cost, you have high turn. The cost that comes along with high turn is detrimental to a market. So my challenge to myself in terms of learning from that is trying to be as objective as possible and getting out of my own way, trying not to protect these people till the bitter end, but really holding them accountable, which normally I am. But I knew, and for some reason, I thought I could help them. I thought I could fix them. And at the end of the day, that wasn't the case.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. That's really helpful because some people are too quick to move to let people go, others are not. And so that's helpful because for those of our listeners who can relate to that, there's probably plenty. It's how do you start discerning though? So let me go in with you a little bit on that. And how do you know when to draw that line? And so can you share what you might do going forward that might have, even though you felt like if you just had more time with them, you could bring them around?
Yes, I minimized some of the feedback that I was receiving. I minimized it and I protected the person rather than giving merit to where the feedback was coming from. And thinking of it from the aspect of, well, that is their truth. It doesn't make it the truth. And just because I hadn't seen it personally doesn't mean that it wasn't happening. And having such a large team makes it challenging to provide feedback in a way that, well, so-and-so shared this feedback. You have to really identify the feedback. You have to try and see it for yourself so that you validate, is this real? Is this something?
Yeah.
So what I'm committing to moving forward is giving more merit to some of the feedback that's coming to me on certain team members. The challenge, however, is at this level, you don't receive all the information, or the information that you receive is polished and skewed in a way that they think you want to hear it.
Yep.
But the reality is such that I need to hear it in the most raw form, and I need to hear it all. And again, really learning to balance that and asking more questions moving forward is, I think, what I need to do.
I love it. I love it because it suggests more discipline. Winston Churchill he would get feedback from his generals during World War II around what was needed from a troop movement standpoint. And you may recall this. We talked about this in a course we did together. But he went downstairs to the data crunchers that was in the basement where they were holding their headquarters. And that's where he got his information in terms of casualties and those that were injured and how many supplies actually were going out. And so there's a discipline that you're, again, speaking to, which I think comes naturally to you, that you're going to apply or are planning to apply going forward or applying it going forward around check and verify, right? And to get more information, but it takes more work. It takes more work. So there's a place where, your willingness to do that is laudable. So I'd love to pivot a little bit to kind of from your point of view, Steph, in your career or in your life, what have been the toughest choices, one or two toughest choices for you where the pressure to do something a certain way or to say yes or to go along with or let go of has been strong in a culture or in an environment, and you had to really look at yourself and make a tough decision. Can you share that a little bit?
Yes. And one professional. On a personal front, I'll never forget my father died of a massive heart attack when I was 18 years old.
Wow.
And as such, I was fresh out of high school. I had some scholarships to go to college. I was the first girl on my dad's side to graduate high school.
Wow.
Let alone get into college. And he was so proud. However, passed of that massive heart attack 2 weeks before I started school.
Wow.
So as I got into school, I'm grieving and didn't really understand or realize what I was going through. And I was making some silly decisions. I'm not sure how I was able to participate in all the extracurriculars and still maintain a 3.4 GPA, which I am proud of, by the way. Considering
oh my God, the fact that you could even go to school at that point.
I had no choice. In my mindset, we just kept moving. And as such, I continued to make these bad decisions. And my brother, the following year, graduated high school and immediately joined the military. And I'll never forget, he called me from boot camp and he says to me, Steph, you need to do this. Just drop it all. The military will pay for your college. Just drop it all and come. Join. It'll get you out of, I'm from Corpus Christi. It'll get you out of Corpus Christi. And further to that, it's going to help you with your growth and really help to get us out of the funk we're in, again, after the death of my dad. And I remember mulling that over and thinking, oh my goodness, I can't leave my entire family. I can't leave everything that I've known. And I walked right into a recruiter's office. I was on my way to the Air Force recruiter when the Army recruiters reached out of their office, grabbed my arm and said, please let us talk to you first. Well, in that moment, they offered me $19,000 to sign because I had college credit and gave me a little rank as a result of my college credit. And I joined, and I remember the paperwork with my signature, and I went and I talked to my mom, and she laughed at me. And she said, there is no way you are going to make it in the military. And of course, I looked at her and I was like, what are you talking about? Of course I am. And she says, you don't like anyone telling you what to do. And the environment, I just can't imagine it's for you. That difficult decision, again, to join the military was quite pivotal because it was in the military where I had the opportunity to live in Seoul, South Korea. I met my husband at the time and I had the opportunity to travel. And for that, I was very, very grateful. But again, making that decision and
at that age.
Yeah, it just changed the trajectory of my life. There's no doubt. I don't know where I would be, but it acted as an incredible distractor for me and it helped me to get back on the right track.
Wow.
Yeah.
Knowing you, I've never exactly known that story. So that's very, at that age too, such a young age to go against what mom's saying, right? And what you in your heart wanted too, because you didn't want to leave family at that age so vulnerably, feeling so vulnerable after the passing of your father. So thank you. That's really helpful. And so what made you, I get just to dig into that, and I know we're going to get to the business example too. What made you decide? What made you go towards it, do you think?
I couldn't see a future. Everything was so hazy at the time. I was daddy's girl. We were close, and I could not imagine a life moving forward without my dad by my side. Now, to be clear, my mother is incredible and has always been my biggest supporter, and she is a lovely human being, but that connection with daddy was that piece that he was never going to be able to walk me down the aisle. He was never going to meet my future children. And I remember sulking in that for quite some time. And so it was impactful. And again, during that particular time in life, it impacted me very deeply. I was sad that he didn't get to celebrate the successes. So as I looked forward, I just couldn't imagine what that was going to look like going forward. I knew I was going forward. I couldn't picture it. I couldn't imagine it. And I missed my brother. And when he left, I was like, screw it. Let's do this. Let's see what it looks like. And like I said, I couldn't be more grateful for that opportunity to experience what I got to experience.
Thank you. That's just really helpful. It's a great example. And so you mentioned that you had a business example also.
Yeah. The toughest choice for me in business was to decide whether or not I wanted to continue to grow with the organization.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is for the longest time, I wanted to be that stay-at-home mom, which I was for 5 years with the kids. And I wanted to do that. And I had this Martha Stewart-esque mindset of I wanted to do all of the fun things that Martha got to do, right? And I'm actually quite creative, and I'm a good cook, by the way, and started to get to the point where it was quite demanding. And Bill and I sat down, and we really had to decide what was best for the family. And something to note is I do have a special needs son. So as I felt that I had to balance or choose between work and family, the toughest choice for me was choosing to stay with the organization and figuring out how to harmonize both work and family, especially because the dynamic was quite different than your typical familial dynamic. And I will tell you what helped me tremendously is we have amazing role models within the organization. Steve, the CEO, and his wife have been together, oh my goodness, I'm butchering this, but probably over 35 years. And they are such a sound example of what most aspire to be in a relationship, in a marriage. And they have 7 children and a beautiful story in that way. And many other examples of that within the organization. And I remember talking to Steve about it one time, and he literally says to me, you don't have to choose. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It can be both. But feeling like I had someone on my side, creating a safe space for me, allowed me the opportunity to make the choice to find that harmony. And although at times it can be off kilter, I will tell you, I get to sleep at night very well knowing that I am doing right by my family and my business.
Yeah. Those are, women are all so often faced with those choices more than men, because there are certain assumptions in our society about the female role is more home and work, not just home or work. And so it sounds like the expression of having it all, that's a tough one because it's a moving target. Yet I'm hearing that you were able to find a way to make that tough choice. You were able to find a balance in the way you got supported. Does that, so that your family would be supported? Because I'm trying to tease out what was that balancing factor. And without going into detail, is that fair, the way I'm expressing it?
The support, absolutely. I felt in that time that I needed permission for some weird reason. I'm sure I have to work through in my work to come, but I felt like I needed permission from the home front and the professional front. And again, because of that relationship with Steve and his understanding and respect of my family dynamic, I got that permission. And coming on the home front and working with Bill and working with my mom and his mom, and really identifying what that support should or needed to look like, and everybody committing, it was great. I felt empowered as a result of having, again, that safe space to do what I needed to do. And I know, Steph, that's really where it all ties back to when I think about affording that opportunity to my teams. I talked about earlier that safe space. I talked about earlier that empowerment. It's because I've been afforded that within my time. And for that, I'm forever grateful.
Oh, that's so helpful. Yeah. And I think that aspect of knowing that it's permission beyond permission, it's necessary. And it's necessary in order for families to succeed and businesses to succeed, to balance and pay attention to what kind of support is needed and not give ourselves away. Because so many women give themselves and exhaust themselves in both situations. And you started this conversation today talking about your personal health commitment as well. And so that's foundational for who you are in order to be able to show up for all the demands that you have in your life.
Yeah, it's all about being intentional. When I think about the relationships in my life, everything has to be hyper intentional. I don't have the time that some have to willy-nilly. If you saw my calendar, again, everything is very, very intentional with how I spend my time. I actually go back and analyze how I spend my time. And I am intentional with the time that I spend with my children. I am intentional the time I spend outside, or the one-on-one time that I give my team, or the planning and strategizing time, or the learning time. I'm the consummate learner. So I'm always reading or ingesting some form of information so that I can turn around and share with others and again, enlighten them. So I think intentionality is the key to it all. If not, there's no way I'd be able to do what I do.
Well, that's a great way to land this conversation, because it's clear those threads have pulled through everything you've shared. And I hope and I know that our listeners will take away applicable examples of how they might apply this to their own work and home lives, because it's not a surprise that you are so truly successful, both because of what's underneath your approach, your point of view, your heart-based commitment, and your belief that you can make it happen. And so many of us need to remember what we may need to fail a few times or more before we get it right, but it's ultimately possible for people to get incredible results. So I thank you so much for sharing yourself with us, your approaches, and I really think our listeners will get a lot out of this conversation. Thank you so much, Steph.
Thank you so much for having me, Steph. I'm happy to partner with you here.
Thank you for listening. To hear more conversations with leaders, please subscribe to The Toughest Choice wherever you listen to podcasts. For updates, please connect with me on LinkedIn. This is Stephanie Reynolds. Thanks for listening.